So we have the ranker. We're gonna be going through a bunch of stuff, and I think Did we decide to rank them just based off of how cool these characters were? I was gonna say powerful
Yeah.
and or cool because whatever, like, or
I
dangerous.
mean, there could be some
Spooky.
really powerful characters that we just don't remember because they were so uncool. So I feel like they go hand in hand with cool.
All right. Well, I'm gonna be ranking them. I just think rank them however you want. I don't really give a fuck.
Okay.
So, but I think we should present them round robin style. I know you already ranked yours, Lady Emery, so we already know your opinion on yours, but I also think we rug pulled on you by just deciding to do a tier ranker. People love this tier ranker shit. It's all over the fucking internet. I'll kick it off,
Well,
okay?
okay.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best.
Go for it.
I want to kick it off with an obvious sort of one here for me because it's Dragon Ball time right now. So Dragon Ball is like back. It's sexier than ever, and it's pre Dragon Ball Super, which makes it even better because Dragon Ball Super was very hit or miss. And I'm gonna go with what I think is probably the most monstrous of any of the Dragon Ball Z villains, and that is Cell. Perfect Cell. I think Perfect Cell is probably the most evil of any of the villains in Dragon Ball. And I would like to propose him as a villain that's worth looking at because he eats even from the get-go. If you've seen Dragon Ball, he literally absorbs and eats like entire cities worth of people. I mean, he is the epitome of evil, and also has enough power to basically destroy the Earth like 1,000,000 times easily. So I don't know how you guys feel about Cell, but I like him pretty good, and I would probably put him like either as an A or an S tier. Any thoughts?
I can't pass judgment because I've never seen it. So
I would say not S tier. I don't think he's like an S tier monster because at the end of the day he did get messed up by Gohan. So
That's true.
Can you really be S tier if that's what happens? I wouldn't put him as low. I would say I wouldn't put him lower than B tier for sure. I say in the time since he is a memorable villain, but I feel like we forget a lot about his monster origins. I was looking at some of the pictures you had put up here. And I'm like, right, I forgot he looked like a freaking bug before this, until he gets to his perfect form.
Yeah. And then he gets dead sexy.
So yeah, I'd be okay with an A tier.
Emery, do you have an opinion on Cell?
I do. I would put him at a B. I could give him an A, but not quite S. But Bug Cell was actually terrifying. I did not like when he absorbed 18 and 17. Spoilers for those who have not watched Dragon Ball Z for however long it's been out. But
okay, well,
I want you guys to convince me what makes him A versus B.
Well, I mean, for one thing, he's a very classic shonen villain, so he's persisted for a long time. He's probably more powerful than most of the monsters on here. Like we're gonna do Devilman later. He would kill Devilman in like 1 second. Like there's no doubt about it. It's not even close. I don't know, and I just think he's got quite an exceptional character design. So I guess that's why I would do it. I mean, I can agree with not going S right away, even though I'm biased as fuck.
Definitely not an S in my opinion.
But I mean, putting Cell as a B tier is kind of like saying Dragon Ball doesn't have any A tier monsters in it, which I just can't agree with.
Well, what about Frieza? Like, so for me, I would agree. I like Cell over Frieza, but like some people would argue Frieza's the bigger monster.
Well,
I would argue that they're the same, to be fair, because Frieza is just a child in a lot of ways, and so that kind of like if Frieza was a mature villain / monster, I feel like Frieza is an S tier, but he's actually just like a cowardly child, like
Cell's bringing that
kid.
gentleman, like male adult
suaveness.
energy.
So it makes you see, like partially, I am also adding sexiness to some of these monsters because it is October,
Okay.
it is Halloween,
Okay, all right.
and sexy costumes are a part of Halloween. Do we not agree?
I love me a cat girl.
Okay, so but to answer Lady Emery's question about why an A tier, and so we can move on also because we don't want to spend the whole time on Cell. We could in essence, I think if you averaged out Bug Cell to Perfect Cell, I think it really goes the gamut. I think Bugcell, with the way he absorbs the androids, is kind of almost like body horror-esque. In a way that I think is kind of interesting, the way he like just sucks them up with a tail. If I'm remembering correctly, it's just kind of like crazy and creepy, and it's just like goodbye. And this is after they've gained some sort of humanity as well, and they've been humanized by our hero characters. So you're just like, oh, they're not bad anymore. And then it's like Cell comes in and is like, yum, and that's kind of like messed up. So I would argue that would put him in an A tier, but he's also like a memorable monster slash villain from the Dragon Ball franchise overall, right? I would say him and Frieza are essentially like the top tier villains in
Yeah.
general,
Yeah.
and but I would argue Cell is also brought down from because he's more gentlemanly. He's here for a challenge. He's honestly, if you think about it, he's almost like the mirror image of Goku in a lot of ways. Anyway, I would say that's why A tier.
Okay, A tier.
We'll stick with that.
You convinced me. A tier. I'm good with A tier. I'm good.
All right, Lady Emery.
Gonna wear you down.
Do I get to go next? Do I get
You
to?
do. You do. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we would be remiss if we don't mention Ryuk from Death Note. And
Yeah.
I put him at an A tier as well. If you feel different, let me know. But like, Ryuk is just such a good monster. I don't know if it fits into the sexy monster category. I mean,
Look at his eyeballs.
I
How
get-
can you not want to just like get a piece
Yeah,
of
I feel
that?
lost
like
in
we
them?
need to decide on what metrics we are basing this on. Because is it cool? Is it strong? Is it sexiness?
It's all of it.
all across the board right now.
I think
It's a
I think it
vibe.
matters to what genre we're talking about the monsters in, right? So like I'm saying I'm taking sexiness into account. That might help you. Not in this. Actually, Ryuk does have some sexy poses. We're just looking at his bed pose right now. But honestly,
Oh,
I would argue Ryuk is actually probably an S tier monster. He
Ooh.
is
Really iconic.
not just iconic, but even, and I'm gonna, I guess, spoilers for the finale of Death Note. Like at the end of the day, he did not actually give a fuck about anybody. He was just there for his own enjoyment,
I
and
love
He's
that
he
just
meant
there
it.
to be entertained.
And he kept his word when he said, "When it's
did.
when I'm done with you, I will write your name personally in that book." Not L, Light. He's like, "Well, I'm done with you," and I think he kind of did, and then that was it. And yeah, and it was like cold. It was monstrous. He is just there for the fun. He did not care about anybody. I think he's like what I would consider an S tier monster in a lot of ways. Yeah, like yeah, no, I would argue S tier
Y-
personally.
Yeah, I know that before the podcast, Caroline was talking about humanoids, and while he fits into humanoids, as in like his like body shape to a certain extent, he's as far from a human as you can get, other than
yeah.
like the human one that wants to be entertained.
Yeah, like when I meant like humanoids, it would definitely feel like a lot of like people or a lot of monsters that take the form of humans at some point. Ryuk is not a human by any means, so I would not put him in that category. And I love Ryuk. He's like the what's the comedic release? No, it's the comedic
Comic relief.
comic relief. That's what am I talking about? Comic relief for the show, and yet he is the monster. But it's only because we look at Light as the more monstrous being that we are following. So I love his commentary and his love of apples. I would either do S or A. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure about S, but I probably would do A.
I can live with an A. I like him. I like him in here for the same reason as Cell. I think that he's. I don't. I guess he's as iconic as Cell at this point. I don't want to be biased. He hasn't been around as long, but there's a lot of people that have watched Death Note. So to me, he's iconic, and that's why I would put him in the A tier. I don't know that he's like. I haven't seen enough Death Note to speak to his character on a deep level, but I doubt he's like S tier evil. But
No, he's like a chaotic neutral.
so,
Yeah.
but he's iconic. So I'd say Cell is evil, but You know, we've already talked
But
about
we
him.
have
but
not even decided if we are basing this on evilness, so
Yeah, I just
it
think
doesn't even matter.
I just like Ryuk as like an A tier. I think because he's iconic. So
Okay.
does anybody want to feel very strongly for S, or we should just put him in A tier?
I do.
I'm good with A. That's where I had him
But
originally.
I'll allow it.
Okay.
All right, he is in
I
the.
think S. I very much. I would argue S in a lot of ways. He is literally the reason why Death Note exists. The whole crux of that story.
All right, Andrew, you're up.
Okay, well, you know what? One of us actually had to pick an actual monster with a monster in their name, and I'm gonna go with Devimon, the digital monster from Digimon. Uh, and so he is. I would argue it depends on which incarnation you're looking at, but he's basically a B tier monster in my opinion. He's the main antagonist for the first arc of the original Digimon series. He shows up in like the reboot, and he does have some mini. He has ramifications from his actions on some of the characters in throughout the entire run of the original group. Like the youngest child at the time, when they interacted with them, essentially Devimon is a part of his like childhood trauma that he carries with him going forward. So in a lot of ways, Devimon, he has a really cool design as well. I think as basically what you would consider a dark angel in a lot of ways, but he does get punked a lot essentially towards the end there as well, which is why I put him at a B tier. And he doesn't do anything super crazy. You could argue Myotismon is more of an A tier monster because he does have also ramifications. But I think as like an initial trauma that the kids do deal with in their first the first arc of Digimon that have had ramifications that continue on into the rest of the series. And him being sort of behind that, even if it's through like as a puppeteer, I think that he's a really interesting monster. He does, especially if you're looking at it from like a childlike. Like he would be like the equivalent like of a monster under the bed kind of like fear for most of the series, and then come in and boom, he's just like the actual fear in front of you, and they end up like defeating it with angel powers. But I would say he's just like a nice, solid B tier monster.
I know nothing about this character, so I would can't really disagree with you when you say B tier. You seem to know a lot.
Me
Anybody?
neither.
Nope, I'm fine with B tier.